Hello there. So today's my wife Hannah's 31st birthday. Happy birthday, babe. I love you. Aww. But this video actually starts exactly 1 year ago on her 30th birthday. Let me explain. So last year I wanted to do something really special for such a big milestone birthday. I decided that I would ask her closest friends and family to write letters telling about their relationship with her and how she had impacted their lives over the past 30 years. I would then compile these letters, write my own letter, and just put them all together in a PDF, which I would give to her on her birthday to read. Well, as the letters rolled in, and as I was writing my own, I started to feel like I needed to do more with this project than just throw it in a PDF. I mean, Hannah's such an amazing person. She's so loving and selfless, and she's been insanely resilient in the face of some of the hardest adversity. The world needs at least a glimpse into her story. So that's how we got here. This is my year-long journey of self-publishing the story of an extraordinary woman. Strap in. I've got no idea what I'm doing, so this is going to be a pretty bumpy ride. So I've just got to start out by saying that if you're looking for a tutorial or a professional presentation on how to self-publish a book perfectly, you've got the wrong video. I legitimately didn't know what I was doing throughout most of this process. Almost everything that I'm about to show you and tell you about are things that I just had to figure out and learn along the way. I guarantee that there are far better, more efficient, more perfect ways of doing everything that I show you in this video. But this is just the real life process of me, some random average dude figuring it out as I went. So if you're also just a normal person who's thinking about self-publishing a book, or if you're someone who likes watching a normal person stumble chaotically through a potentially interesting project, then welcome. You're in good company. This video is for you. Now let's get this show on the road. What could possibly go wrong? This is the part of the process that's going to vary the most from project to project. I mean, it really just all depends on what kind of book you're publishing. I don't really have any good advice on how to write other types of books, but here's what I did for this anthology. I started out by thinking through what kinds of things I would want the contributors to include in their letters. I came up with some prompts and wrote out some instructions to help guide them. As I was coming up with the prompts and writing the instructions, I tried to think from the opposite perspective. If I was given this same request to write a letter about one of my friends, what guidance would I need to set me up for success? Because I was committed to not editing the content of the letters other than for formatting, I needed to help make sure that their original letters were as close to the target as possible. With all of that prepared, I set up a Google form and started reaching out to people. Because the demographic of the contributors ranges from elementary school kids to senior citizens, the process of collecting everyone's letters was a little bit like herding cats. Some of the contributors couldn't get the form to work, some just emailed me their submissions instead of using the form, some didn't quite follow the instructions, and some didn't even have a Gmail account to be able to use the form. It was a little chaotic, but we ended up being able to work through all of those problems, and I was able to collect everyone's letters in the end. I just want to take a second to express the deep gratitude that I feel towards everyone who contributed to this anthology. Thank you. Your chorus of voices is what makes this project what it is. I literally could not have done it without you. Your efforts are so meaningful to me and even more so to Hannah. Genuinely, thank you for all of the love and care and time that you poured into writing these letters for her. You guys are awesome. Now that I've got all of the written content for the book, it's time to start editing it and formatting it. Spoiler alert, I shouldn't have done that. Formatting the book while I was editing turned out to be an enormous mistake. I thought that I was saving time by doing both at once, but man was I wrong. This ended up being one of the biggest headaches and time wasters throughout the entire process. I'll talk more about why it caused so many problems in a bit, but for right now, let's just talk about what I actually did. I decided that I wanted to work on everything in Google Docs so that I could go back and forth between editing on my computer or on my phone. Because I did the editing and formatting at the same time, using Google Docs would also end up being a mistake. I started out by reading through each letter quickly, just like I would a normal book, just to get an overall feel for the flow of the letter. I then read back through it very slowly and meticulously, correcting any punctuation and spelling errors, as well as any particularly bad grammar mistakes that I felt would make the text too difficult to understand. As I said earlier, my goal was to edit the letters as little as possible so that they would be kept true to the contributors' original voices. This is the point in the process where you would usually hire a professional editor to go through the text and make it 100% perfect, but honestly, I don't even know if that's necessary these days. At this point, even just the spelling and grammar correction in Google Docs is good enough to catch 99% of the mechanical errors. If you want to take it further than that and actually editorialize the content, you can always throw it into something like Grammarly or get feedback from an AI service if that's something you're okay with. The bottom line is that you want your text to read as professional, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to hire a professional editor to get there. Once I had the text of a letter edited to a satisfactory degree, I moved on to formatting the text. I set up the title page of the chapter, added headers and footers, broke the text into logical paragraphs, and then added a drop cap character at the beginning of the chapter. It took a little trial and error, but eventually I figured out a way to get the drop cap letters to format consistently in Google Docs. I started by inserting a new drawing into the text, setting the drawing to word art, typing in the capital letter I needed, and then making sure the color and font styles were correct. Once the character was inserted into the text, I adjusted the position and size to how I wanted it to look. I went through this process for each of the letters and then wrote out the content for the front and back matter of the book. I had no idea what you were supposed to include in the front and back matter, so I literally just looked at some books that I had laying around to see what they had. I also found the Kindle Direct Publishing, or KDP, help resources, which had an article talking about what's normally included in these sections of the book. The KDP help site ended up being incredibly useful throughout the entire process. I'll put a link to it down in the description. Definitely check it out if you're going to publish your own book. With all of the text in the book edited and ready to go, it was time to move on to the most time-consuming part of the entire process. Along with their letters, I gave the Anthology contributors the option to upload their favorite photos of themselves with Hannah because I also wanted this book to serve as a kind of visual memoir of these relationships throughout the years. As I was looking through the photos and trying to decide how I wanted to incorporate them into the pages of the book, I had the idea to edit them all to look like old Polaroid photos. This would help to give the photos a little bit more of an organic feel and would allow me to kind of just lay them out haphazardly on the pages, making them kind of look like a scrapbook with photos scattered around. Stylistically, I'm really happy with this decision. I love how the look and feel of the photos throughout the book turned out. But this made for an enormous amount of work. I started out by making 3 different Polaroid style frames in Photoshop to again make things feel a little more organic and break up the monotony of every single photo having the exact same frame. I really had no idea how to create a Polaroid frame in Photoshop, so I just watched a few different video tutorials on YouTube and incorporated the parts that I liked best from each one. The basics of it are pretty simple. Have a white rectangle for the background of the frame, have a black rectangle for where the photo will be cropped to, add a text object for the caption, and add a slight drop shadow to make it look like it's sitting on top of the page. I also used a few different paper textures to give the frames a little more natural feel, and I also made 2 variations of the old wrinkled frames so that the old style photos would have a little bit more variety. I made the wrinkled frames by literally just smudging and distorting the original white rectangle in Photoshop and adjusting it around where it made sense and lined up with the paper texture overlay. I put a link in the description to my exact Photoshop document that I used to create all of the Polaroid style photos, so if you want to try making some for yourself, be sure to check that out and let me know in the comments if you have any questions on how to use it. With the frames finished and ready to use, all I had to do now was use them to edit every single image into a Polaroid. All 390 of them. This was by far the grindiest part of the process. For each image, I brought it in, figured out whether it would be framed better in landscape or portrait, rotated and adjusted it accordingly, and then added any applicable text captions. Making the text feel natural and at least somewhat realistic is probably what took the longest. On top of the fact that there were just so many images to edit, there was one other reason that getting them finished took so long. You'll get a little bit more of the story if you read my letter in the book, but the very short version of a very long story is that over the last 5 years or so, I've been battling multiple sclerosis, or MS. I've gone from being a very active, outdoorsy person, playing multiple sports and camping and all that kind of stuff, to being wheelchair bound and confined almost entirely to only the second floor of my house. Editing all the photos for my letter and all the photos in the appendix was brutally emotional for me every second of the way. Seeing and reliving all of those fond memories of what once was but presently isn't was excruciating, to the point that I can only do a few at a time before I had to stop and take a break from it, sometimes for multiple days, because I was far from motivated to subject myself to it again. With great effort and perseverance, I finally got all of them edited. With all of the photos ready, I went back over to the Google Doc and started laying them out on the pages. I just kind of imagined how I would put them if I had physical Polaroids to lay down, making sure any important captions were visible and the photos didn't overlap too much. I wanted them to look like they were actually on top of the page, so I even made some of them overlap the page headings a little to give a little more depth. This would turn out to be another huge mistake. At this point, I think everything's good to go, and I'm just trying to export my document from Google Docs so that I can upload it to Kindle Direct Publishing and send it on its way. But I can't? It turns out there's a size limit for Google Docs' capability to export to PDF. You know what will put you over that size limit? 390 photos strewn throughout your document. After what felt like 1,000 different attempts of trying to get it to export 1,000 different ways, I finally found a random obscure forum thread where somebody mentioned that if you print to PDF instead, it'll allow you to export larger file sizes. It just takes forever to process the document. So that's what I tried to do. And thankfully it worked. It took forever to prepare the file, but it finally downloaded, and I was good to go. Smooth sailing from here, right? Wrong. When I first set up the document in Google Docs, I was intending to use Barnes & Noble Press to print the book. So I set up the document's margin and bleed according to their specifications. You want to know who doesn't have the same specifications? Kindle Direct Publishing. I uploaded my beautiful, perfect manuscript to KDP and was met with a gazillion errors saying that everything was outside of the required bleed area. This sent me down a multi-day, countless-hour detour that was 100% unnecessary. If I had just simply written the full manuscript first, no formatting, no photos, no nothing else, and downloaded that, and then added the photos and formatting afterwards, I could have avoided every single bit of this because I could have just changed the margin and bleed areas at that point. But no, at this point I had a fixed layout PDF to deal with because I really didn't want to go through the process of formatting the text and laying out all the photos again in a new document. Spoiler alert, I'm going to end up doing exactly that for the Kindle version anyway. What I ended up doing was fiddling around with the PDF in Adobe InDesign for hours and hours. Basically, what ended up working was creating a document with a weird page size and weird margin and bleed values, inserting all of the PDF pages into the InDesign document, and then adjusting the page size, margin, and bleed so that they were correct. Then I had to reposition all of the pages individually so that they were aligned correctly within that layout. It was a terribly frustrating process, but I finally had a document that looked acceptable to me and that passed KDP's layout verification. With the manuscript uploaded to KDP and sent off for their manual review, it was now time to get started with the cover design. Remember how I was going to use Barnes & Noble Press at first, but then decided to switch to Kindle Direct Publishing? Yeah, I didn't remember that when I started designing the cover. So I designed the entire thing using the template from Barnes & Noble Press. Thankfully, it really wasn't that much work to get it adjusted to the KDP template instead. It was just yet another mistake. More time wasted. Again, this is a point in the process where you would often want to hire a professional cover artist. In most cases, I actually think that's probably the best way to go, rather than trying to do it yourself. That being said, you definitely still don't have to hire a professional. There are so many free resources these days for learning graphic design and photo editing. If you're like me and you've got more time and patience to spend than money to spend, then learning the necessary skills and doing it yourself is 100% manageable. Personally, I already had some graphic design and photo editing experience, so creating the cover design was something I was already comfortable doing with minimal new learning necessary. One important thing to keep in mind is that if you're going to release a hardcover, paperback, and Kindle version of your book like I did, then you're going to have 3 separate versions of the cover art, each using the corresponding template for the trim size and page count of the book that you're publishing. Again, check KDP's help resources. They've got tons of good information and even a template generator there. With the final manuscript already uploaded for the paperback and hardcover versions of the book, and all of the cover designs ready to go, all that's left to do is upload the manuscript for the Kindle version and all of the cover art, and send them off for KDP's final review. Wait, I made the Kindle version, right? I'll deal with that in a second. First, let's get all of the book listing information filled in real quick. It's mostly pretty basic stuff like the title of the book, the author's name, a description for the Amazon listing, tags and categories for the book, all that kind of stuff. The last thing to do after selecting your book format and uploading your manuscripts and cover files is to set the pricing and distribution. I chose to have the book distributed worldwide because why not? Just for the record, I'm not really trying to make money off of this book, so I chose the pricing fairly haphazardly. Here was my line of thinking and how I ended up with it where I did. The most expensive book is the hardcover because it costs more to produce, so that's my top end. I set that version at $19.94 because that's the year Hannah was born in, and the book's about her. I then moved down a rung to the paperback version and set its price to $10.94 because it's like $19.94, but cheaper, but also still more than KDP's $9.99 requirement to get their 60% royalty rate. Moving down to the last version, the Kindle edition, there's slightly more to consider. You have the option of enrolling the book in KDP Select, which basically means that it'll be sold exclusively on KDP. This also makes it available to participate in Amazon's Kindle Unlimited program if you want to. In terms of the actual Kindle ebook pricing, you have the option to choose between 2 different royalty rate programs. They work slightly differently, and honestly, I barely understand the differences, so I just chose the one that seemed better to me. I then chose a price for the Kindle book of $6.19 because Hannah was born on June 19th. Also, it's 69 with 1 in the middle. Nice. Yeah, so I kind of forgot to make the Kindle version. Just in case you're wondering, no, you can't really use the same PDF manuscript that you use for the physical versions for the Kindle version. I mean, technically you can, but then you lose all of Kindle's font controls and reflow text functionality, and it just displays as a fixed layout PDF. Also, if you do that, it'll only be available in the Kindle mobile app, not on Kindle devices. Definitely not ideal, and not what I'm going for. So I downloaded Kindle Create, which is KDP's tool for creating Kindle formatted ebooks, and started trying to figure it out. This is my first time ever looking at this software, so I have no idea how anything works or where anything is. Remember how I didn't want to reformat everything a second time? Well, now's when I get to do exactly that. I created a copy of my Google Doc, removed all the photos, cleared out the headers and footers, got rid of all the formatting, and got back down to just the raw text-based manuscript. You know, the one that I should have started out with. I could then download that as a Word document and import it into Kindle Create. I got to work reformatting all of the chapters, just figuring out how to use the Kindle Create tools as I went. Eventually I got everything looking how I wanted, and all I had left to do was to add the photos back in. I really didn't want to have to lay out all of them individually all over again, so what I ended up doing was a little bit janky, but it worked. I took the PDF manuscripts for the hard copy versions, got rid of all the text on the pages with photos, and then exported all of those pages using Adobe Acrobat as PNG images, which I could then import as whole page images into Kindle Create. It was a pretty sketchy workflow, but in the end it got me where I needed to go, so I guess it was fine. I exported the final Kindle ebook version, got it uploaded to KDP, and sent it off for review. After uploading the Kindle ebook, I noticed that there was an option to set up content for Amazon's X-ray feature. I've seen this before when I was using the Amazon Prime streaming service, where it shows you details about the actors and such as you're watching a movie or TV show. This gave me the ability to add author notes and information about the various terms and characters that are mentioned in the book. These will show up as clickable links in the Kindle ebook as you're reading it. This is really cool functionality and really should have been a breeze to set up. Except it wasn't. The process was straightforward enough, but the website crashed out every 4 seconds, and every time that it did, some amount of the changes I just made were lost. I don't even know how many tries it took to actually get through all of it, but eventually I did, and published the final X-ray information. Just when I got all of the X-ray content finalized, I got an email about the hardcover version's review status. I had already gotten an email saying that the paperback version was approved and ready for release, so I excitedly opened my email, expecting the hardcover version to also be approved. Nope, it was rejected. What? The paperback and hardcover version are literally the exact same PDF manuscript. What the heck? Why was one approved and one rejected? After attempting to re-upload the same manuscript again multiple times, naively hoping that it would go through for some reason, it continued to still be rejected. I then turned to a different approach and had multiple calls and conversations with KDP customer support. I was informed that the paperback version never should have gotten approved either. Apparently, it had just slipped through the cracks, but it should have also been rejected. I was told that if I ever made edits to that version in the future, it would likely be rejected when it was re-reviewed. The reason for the rejection was that there was illegible text in the manuscript. Apparently, the photos that were slightly covering some of the page headers didn't meet the guidelines. Time to make more manual edits on this fixed layout PDF that I've forced myself into working with. To save myself more headache in the future, I made sure that the images were well away from covering over any text whatsoever. I also made sure to upload the new manuscript to both the paperback and hardcover versions and sent them off for review. This time, they both came back accepted. Finally, everything's good to go. Now just to wait for release day. While I was waiting, I went ahead and added an author bio and photo for myself in Amazon so that my profile would show up with the book. Remember how I said that Google Docs will catch 99% of your spelling, punctuation, and grammar errors? Yeah, well, I found the 1% that it doesn't catch, and that would be misspellings of proper names. And why would it catch them? Proper names can be spelled however the heck you want. Actually, I only caught these errors because I was looking back through the X-ray information and saw that the Wikipedia entries for 2 of the public figures mentioned in the book had their names spelled differently than they were in the text of the book. I did a couple quick searches and found that they were indeed misspelled in the book. Okay. So after correcting those misspellings in both the PDF manuscript and the Kindle ebook manuscript, I could finally upload the actual, for real, definitely not going to be changed again, final, for real final version of everything, and send it all off for review and approval before publishing and release. Yeah, so every time that you upload a new manuscript for your Kindle ebook, you have to go back through and fix all of the X-ray content again. After 2 more rounds of going through this obnoxious process, I finally published the actual, really for sure final version of the X-ray information. I can't stress this point enough. Do not do anything with the X-ray content before you are 100% sure that you are 100% done with making any changes to your Kindle ebook. Please avoid this nightmare that I chose to suffer through repeatedly for no reason. After getting everything uploaded for the for real final time and it all getting reviewed and approved by KDP for release, I took a look at the cover design of the book for just a little too long and realized that there were some adjustments that I wanted to make. Realistically, the original cover design would have been totally fine, but apparently I like suffering, and I wanted to adjust both the front title text and the back blurb text to be a little more visually legible at a greater distance. Really what this came down to was just tweaking the font sizing, colors, and shading until I was happy with how it looked and I felt that it was more legible. Thankfully, just updating the cover file doesn't require the whole thing to get re-reviewed and approved again, and also doesn't affect the X-ray content at all. In the end, I am glad that I decided to go ahead and make the changes. I really like how the final cover ended up looking. I don't know about you, but I have no idea what's going on right now. So let's try to retrace our steps and then rearrange them into the order that they should have been in the first time around. We started out by collecting and writing all of the content for our book, and then we jumped straight into editing and formatting it because why not? Then as soon as we're done with that, we're going to go straight into image editing, which took absolutely forever. And then we're back into formatting again because our margin and bleed is all wrong. And then we go into the cover design, which is cool. And then we're completely done and just have to do our final upload and publish, except that we're back into formatting because we forgot to make the Kindle version. And once that's uploaded, that means we can do the Kindle X-ray content, which means we're ready for our final upload and publish again. Except there's some editing mistakes, so we got to fix those real quick. And then we're ready for our final upload and publish again for real this time, except that was actually 2 rounds of editing and uploading, which also means 2 rounds of fixing the X-ray content as well. And then it's actually completely 100% done. Except I actually just want to make some small adjustments to the cover, so I'm going to do that real quick. And now it's actually done. So that's what I did. Now let's talk real quick about what I should have done. I'd pretty much start out the same way that I did, just collect or write your core content and get it as clean as possible. Next, move on to editing that content into a final draft of a text-only manuscript. The extent of the formatting should only be setting chapter titles and headings as such. After that, if the book has any images, then we'll edit and prepare those. Next, we take our text-only manuscript and format it into the dedicated manuscripts for each of the hardcover, paperback, and Kindle versions of the book. After our book interior is completely ready to go, then we move on to the cover design. We give ourselves a couple iterations of adjustments and tweaking to get it just how we want it. Make sure to make separate versions for each of the versions of the book that we're going to publish. One for the hardcover, one for the paperback, and one for the Kindle version. We then take a step back for at least a day or so and come back to both the manuscripts and cover designs with aggressive scrutiny and meticulous review. Any editing errors get corrected here, and any final adjustments are made to the cover designs. Our last step is to upload all of the manuscripts and covers and submit them for review and approval. Once our Kindle manuscript has been approved, we then can add any of the X-ray content that we need. Writing the actual content for a book really should be the most difficult and longest portion of the process. Once you have your book's content written, the production and publishing process really shouldn't take that long. Knowing what I know now, I'm confident that when I publish another book, I'll be able to get through steps 2 through 7 in a time frame closer to a month rather than an entire year. Today's the day. Well, today as in when I'm editing this video, which is June 19th, 2025, Hannah's 31st birthday. After all this time, all this hard work, it's finally time to just take a deep breath and release this thing into the wild. It's been a crazy year-long ride, but I'm really happy with how everything came together. I made so many mistakes and took so many detours along the way, but I'm glad to have had the opportunity to learn from them and to keep pushing forward to see this project through to completion. I hope that seeing my missteps can help you avoid some of them if you decide to publish your own book. I know that the next book I publish will take a fraction of the production time with all the new skills I've learned and the mistakes that I now know how to avoid. If you take anything away from this video, I hope it's realizing that you really don't need to know what you're doing to be able to self-publish a book. Trust me, if I can figure it out, so can you. You just need a lot of patience and perseverance and a willingness to be constantly learning new things. I really hope this helps to inspire you to pursue that book project you've always wanted to do but never thought you could actually do it. You've got this. Come back and tell me about it in the comments once you do. I can't wait to hear all about it. Hey, thanks for sticking around until the end of the video. I hope it's been helpful and informative or even just entertaining. In future episodes, I plan to voice act and self-publish an audiobook version, which is going to bring a whole new set of challenges and learning opportunities. I also plan to make an interactive website for the book at some point in the future. So subscribe and stay tuned if you want to see me stumble through doing those things as well. If you liked the video, then like the video. If you didn't like the video, then dislike the video. Either way, tell me what you think down in the comments. If you want to see more videos about random stuff, then subscribe. You know how YouTube works. Stay Moxious.